Alright, so back with another video. I'm honestly pissed because this is maybe the third or fourth death of someone who is having a mental health crisis in Detroit, and I don't know what the fuck is going on. For one, solutions, I think what needs to be proposed here is a hotline or some type of a call center or hotline, not even a call center, a hotline where you can call and ask a social worker to come out and assist with someone having a mental health crisis. I mean, that's the first thing. Please stop calling the police. Please stop calling the police. Stop. Call a family member. If you know someone who's a social worker, if you know somebody who's a counselor, call them. Stop calling the fucking police to try to handle mental health crises when they're not fucking trained, nor do they have the empathy to give a shit. So that's the first thing. We need some type of hotline or access to resources that will actually aid when an individual is having a mental health crisis. That's the first thing. Let's see. So I'm just going to play this clip really quick.
That is how much the family of Keisha Miller is demanding from Detroit police after the mother was killed by officers last month. The family's attorney, Jeffrey Feiger, held a news conference just a short time ago, and our Grant Herms is live at DPT headquarters with more on this big lawsuit. Grant.
Well, Christy, the page of this lawsuit tell a very different story than the one that we heard from Detroit police just a month ago. Keisha Miller shooting the second in as many months at the hands of Detroit police while somebody was in the midst of a mental health crisis. All of this happening while the attorney, Jeffrey Feiger, and her family says they are still waiting on video from this case. Inside the $50 million lawsuit, attorney Jeffrey Feiger and the family of 27-year-old Keisha Miller telling a very different story. Miller was killed by police in the midst of a mental health crisis on November 10th. At the time, police saying Miller had attacked her mother and injured one of her young sons. Police also say she was armed with a bat, a knife, and a gun. The family and Feiger say that was not the case. At the time of her death, the lawsuit says she was only wearing underwear and was holding her phone, live streaming the incident.
And the idea that we respond to mental health crises with guns is insanity. And it's not, it should not continue, and it should cost, because nobody is paying attention to it unless we make them pay a whole lot of money.
Feiger made...
Yes. Okay, I just want to stop there. Jeffrey Feiger, really famous attorney. He worked on another pretty famous big case. I don't know which one it was, but anyway, glad to see he's stepping in, and absolutely, I mean, why in the fuck, just like I was saying, are we responding to mental health crises with weapons? I mean, again, like I've stated in other videos, as a social worker and a therapist, I've been in job positions where kids manually created weapons in foster care. I mean, you know, you work with a lot of seriously traumatized kids, and I mean, I had a kid chase me around with a choking device that he had created. And guess what I did? I walked away. Wow, what a concept. Actually, I ran because he was kind of chasing me, but it's a 10-year-old boy and there was other people there, and it can end very differently if you just respond instead of reacting. And that's what's going on. And on top of it, it's not just reacting. This is deliberate. This is becoming deliberate, and it's purposeful. Guns should not even be brought or drawn if you call the police during a mental health crisis. That's absurd. And it sounds like they lied too. about what actually happened. So again, I want to point out the VAC model: vulnerability, accessibility, credibility. So vulnerable 27-year-old girl having a mental health crisis calls the cops in Detroit. There's their access because you called them and you allowed them to come to your home. So the scary thing about this is that we never know who a predator is and what uniform they could possibly be dressed up in. And as we know, cops tend to be a profession where we see that a lot. Predators sneaking into that profession because it's quite easy, because it doesn't require an educational background, nor does it require really much training or skill, clearly. So, point being, that's how they had access. And now that she's dead, they're smearing her character and trying to say that essentially they were in the right by taking something, an aspect about her, and turning it against her, essentially. That's literally what that is. Now that she's dead, she can't speak up for herself. All her family can do is speak up for her. Luckily, there's video, but that's exactly what they're doing. Now they're essentially saying, well, she was mentally ill. She had a gun. She blah, 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 blah. So there goes her credibility of deserving to live, I guess. Fucking sickos. So there's that. The other thing is, another way this can be used is, you know, in court, this happens a lot, and the police do this a lot, where they try to argue a point by discounting you or your credibility by aiming at things like mental health and alcoholism, or, I mean, really anything. That's another one. Alcohol and addiction oftentimes gets used against people, victims of abuse, survivors of abuse. So, that being said, we're going to watch the rest of that video.
$50 million.
Today, we also reached out to DPD for a comment, but did not hear back from them before talking to you right now, Christy. Coming up at 5 o'clock tonight, we'll tell you the state of those 3 officers involved in this shooting, including why one of those officers, the sergeant in charge that evening, is suspended, but is also still being paid. At DPD headquarters, Grant Herms, Local 4.
So, other thing I want to point out here is Jeffrey Fieger makes an extremely crucial point, in that when you're talking about predators and what am I trying to say? When you're talking about predators and in particular people who have narcissistic personality disorder, without accountability, essentially a lack of accountability is the breeding ground for narcissism and violence, because without that, these people, absolutely, these predators have some type of disorder where they lack empathy, and so the accountability is extremely crucial, because otherwise they clearly don't have the moral compass or empathy or wherewithal to understand that shooting someone should be literally the last possible option, and it should only be, like, seriously if your life is in danger. And there's absolutely no way with one 27-year-old girl that there was more than one cop at the scene. Give me a goddamn break. You guys are either pussies, or you shouldn't fucking be cops if you're that scared of a 27-year-old girl. It's a bunch of bullshit.